Elvis was arriving at his show when he spotted a homeless veteran standing outside in the cold. He could have walked past, but instead, he did something that brought the man to tears. In this video, you'll hear the full story of that night and why the veteran called it the moment that changed his life. To understand what happened next, we need to step back and see the scene as it unfolded that night. Outside the Las Vegas Convention Center, fans poured out in waves, their voices hoarse from screaming, their faces glowing with the high that only comes from seeing Elvis live. They moved toward the parking lot in clusters, reliving every moment, every song. The veteran sat on a concrete ledge near the side entrance, positioned where people had to walk past him, but far enough away that he wouldn't block anyone's path. His gray hair was longer than military regulation, swept back from a weathered face that told stories most people had never heard. The jacket he wore had once been blue, but years of wear had faded it to an uncertain color. His hands rested on his knees, calloused and steady despite everything life had thrown at him. There was dignity in the way he sat, straight-backed even in his exhaustion. The small cardboard sign leaning against his leg was simple. No long explanation, no dramatic plea. Just 3 words that carried the weight of a war most Americans wanted to forget. Many Vietnam veterans returned to a public that did not always understand or welcome them back. This man was one of them. A soldier who had seen combat and carried memories only another soldier would fully understand. When the war ended, he came home to find that the world had moved on without him. The transition from military to civilian life proved impossible, and slowly he lost his footing until he found himself here, hoping that maybe someone leaving the show would see him, really see him, not just glance and look away. The music and laughter from inside the venue created a wall of sound that made his silence feel even deeper. Elvis Presley had a routine after every show. He would towel off the sweat, change his shirt, and head straight for his car while his security team cleared a path. No stops, no detours, no lingering. It was the same pattern in every city, designed to get him out quickly and safely before the crowds could overwhelm the exits. His team had it down to a science. The veteran didn't know it yet, but his long wait was almost over. Backstage, Elvis was following his usual post-show routine, but this night would be different. As Elvis stepped through the back entrance, something made him pause. The adrenaline from 2 hours on stage was still coursing through his veins. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His hair had fallen across his forehead, and every muscle in his body felt the familiar exhaustion that came after giving everything to an audience. The screams from inside the venue were finally starting to fade as the last fans filtered out through the main exits. His car was waiting exactly where it always was, engine running, driver ready. Security had already swept the area twice. The path was clear. All Elvis had to do was walk 30 feet, slide into the back seat, and disappear into the Las Vegas night. He'd done this same routine hundreds of times in dozens of cities. Elvis took his first step toward the car, his mind already shifting to what came next. His head was down, focused on avoiding the small puddles left by the evening's brief rainstorm. Then something caught his eye. A flash of cardboard, 3 words in simple black letters: Vietnam Veteran. Elvis stopped walking. His head lifted. His eyes found the man holding the sign. The veteran was maybe 15 feet away, sitting perfectly still on the concrete ledge. He wasn't looking at Elvis, wasn't even looking up. His gaze was fixed somewhere in the distance, patient and resigned. The cardboard sign rested against his knee like it weighed nothing at all. Elvis felt something shift inside his chest. Vietnam. The word hit him harder than it should have. According to those who knew him, Elvis had a complicated relationship with service and fame. While other young men his age were fighting overseas, Elvis had been making movies and recording albums. He'd always carried questions about that path quietly. Now, one of those boys was sitting outside his concert venue, forgotten by the thousands of fans who'd walked past him, invisible to the very people who'd just spent 2 hours cheering for Elvis. Elvis studied the man's face from where he stood. The veteran's eyes held a deep tiredness that sleep couldn't fix, his posture military straight despite everything. The car door was still 30 feet away. His security team was getting restless, checking their watches, scanning for any problems. The routine was clear. Get in the car, drive away. Pretend this moment never happened. Instead, Elvis made a decision that went against everything his team expected. He would not get in that car. Not yet. But approaching the veteran wouldn't be simple. One wrong move, and the situation could turn into something that would help no one. Elvis moved carefully, knowing that any sudden attention could ruin what needed to happen. A few dozen fans were still lingering in the parking lot, some hoping to catch a glimpse of their idol leaving, others just not ready for the night to end. If they spotted Elvis talking to someone, they'd swarm over within seconds. Camera flashes would start going off. Autograph books would appear. The quiet moment he sensed this veteran needed would be destroyed by chaos. 3 members of his security team stood near the car, watching Elvis with growing concern. This wasn't the plan. The boss was supposed to be in the back seat by now, heading back to his hotel suite. They'd worked with Elvis long enough to read his moods, and they could see something had shifted. His usual post-show urgency was gone. Instead, he stood perfectly still, studying something across the parking lot. According to witnesses, Elvis signaled his security team and they took a discreet step back. The other team members spread out slightly, creating an invisible buffer zone without drawing attention to what their boss was about to do. The veteran sat with the patience of someone who'd learned to wait without expecting anything good to happen. His cardboard sign remained propped against his knee, the simple words catching the light from the parking lot lamps. A few more concert-goers walked past him, their conversation loud and animated, but they might as well have been walking past a lamppost. Elvis started walking, but not toward his car. He moved casually, like he was just stretching his legs after being cooped up backstage. No hurry, no obvious destination. Just a man taking a moment to enjoy the cool night air. He kept his movements loose and natural, the kind of walk that wouldn't draw attention from anyone watching. When he reached the concrete ledge, Elvis sat down beside the veteran, deliberately low-key so as not to draw a crowd. Not too close, not invading the man's space, but close enough that his presence couldn't be ignored. The veteran's head turned slowly, more curious than alarmed. Then his eyes went wide. According to witnesses, the veteran recognized him at once. The same face he'd seen on album covers, movie posters, and television screens for the past 20 years. But there was no spotlight now, no stage makeup, no sequined jumpsuit. Just a man in a simple shirt and dark pants, sitting on a curb like any other person might do. The veteran's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His hands gripped his cardboard sign tighter, as if he needed something solid to hold on to in a moment that couldn't possibly be real. Elvis extended his hand in a simple gesture of introduction. His voice was quiet, respectful, designed to carry no further than the space between them. The veteran shook the offered hand with fingers that trembled slightly, still trying to process what was happening. Elvis's calm presence began to work its magic. The veteran's shoulders relaxed. His breathing steadied. Around them, the parking lot continued its normal rhythm, but they'd created their own small world of privacy in the middle of it all. What Elvis said in those first moments would prove more powerful than any song he'd ever sung. The 2 men sat side by side on the concrete ledge while cars pulled out of the parking lot around them. The distant hum of Las Vegas traffic mixed with the fading sounds of fans still talking about the show they'd just witnessed. But in this small space, the noise felt far away. Elvis leaned forward slightly, his voice quiet and genuine. He asked about the man's service, where he'd been stationed, how long he'd been overseas. The questions came naturally, Not like an interview, but like one person honestly wanting to know another person's story. The veteran answered slowly at first, his words careful and measured. He'd served 2 tours in Vietnam, he said. Infantry. The kind of fighting where survival meant constant vigilance. As Elvis listened, the veteran's voice grew steadier. He talked about his unit, about friends who didn't make it home, about the challenges that became normal after a while. His hands moved as he spoke, unconsciously mimicking the way soldiers learn to communicate when words aren't enough. Elvis nodded at the right moments, asked questions that showed he was really paying attention. Then Elvis said something that stopped the conversation cold. According to some accounts, Elvis expressed heartfelt thanks for the man's service and told him he was sorry he hadn't served with him. The words carried weight that cut through 20 years of silence. The veteran's face changed completely. His eyes filled with tears he'd been holding back for longer than he could remember. The veteran later said he had rarely been thanked for his service. Not when he came home. Not in the years since. Most people acted like the war was something embarrassing that everyone should forget. But here was Elvis Presley, the most famous man in America, saying the words he'd waited decades to hear. Elvis didn't look away from the emotion. He didn't try to change the subject or make it easier. He let the veteran feel what he was feeling, gave him space to process 20 years of being invisible. When the man wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, Elvis waited patiently for him to be ready to continue. The veteran started talking about what happened after the war. He explained how life had steadily slipped away until he was sitting here with a cardboard sign. He wasn't making excuses, just explaining how one thing led to another. Elvis listened to every word without judgment. He didn't interrupt with advice or try to fix everything with easy answers. He just sat there like he had all the time in the world, treating this forgotten soldier's story with the respect it deserved. The conversation revealed who Elvis really was when nobody was watching. Not the performer, but the man underneath. As they talked, Elvis began to understand exactly what this moment required. He quietly asked how he could help, and the veteran's answer would lead to something neither man expected. What happened next went far beyond words. Elvis stood up slowly, his mind made up about something that would demonstrate his true character. According to accounts from venue staff who witnessed what happened next, Elvis reached into his jacket and then did something that left everyone stunned. The veteran watched nervously, maybe expecting a few dollars and a quick goodbye. That's what most people did when they helped homeless folks. But Elvis didn't pull out his wallet. Instead, he stood up slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. The parking lot lights caught his face, showing an expression the veteran had never seen on any movie screen or album cover. This wasn't Elvis the entertainer. This was something deeper, more real. The veteran remained seated on the concrete ledge, confusion written across his weathered features. Elvis was standing now, looking down at him with eyes that held no pity, no condescension, just respect. Pure, simple respect from one man to another. According to those who were there, Elvis began removing his jacket. It was a beautiful piece, dark leather with silver details, the kind of thing that probably cost more than the veteran had seen in months. The jacket had been custom-made, fitted perfectly to Elvis's frame. The veteran's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. His hands started to shake. This couldn't be real. Famous people didn't do things like this. They signed autographs, they posed for pictures, but they didn't give away their own clothes to strangers on the street. Reports say Elvis stepped closer and gently placed the jacket around the veteran's shoulders. The leather was warm from Elvis's body heat, soft from years of wear. The veteran's thin frame was swallowed by the jacket, but the gesture became a physical sign that someone had finally seen him. Then, according to witnesses, Elvis told him to keep it, that it was his now. The veteran's face crumpled. 20 years of held-back tears came pouring out all at once. His shoulders shook as sobs racked his body. He pulled the jacket tighter around himself, not because he was cold, but because he needed to hold on to something real, something that proved this moment was actually happening. Elvis didn't step back from the emotion. He reached down and helped the veteran to his feet, his hands steady and supportive. The man could barely stand, overwhelmed by the simple act of being seen, being valued, being treated like he mattered. According to those who were there, Elvis helped the man get food and a place to stay that night. The veteran kept touching the jacket, running his fingers over the smooth leather like he was afraid it might disappear. He tried to speak, to say thank you, but the words wouldn't come. Elvis understood. He placed a gentle hand on the man's shoulder and gave him a look that said everything that needed saying. This account comes from venue staff and witnesses who were present that night. In that parking lot, under those fluorescent lights, something fundamental shifted for both men. The simple act of human kindness created a connection that transcended fame, wealth, and circumstance. What neither man realized in that moment was how far those ripples would spread. The veteran later said Elvis arranged for him to have a hotel room that night, still wearing the leather jacket that carried the scent of kindness. For the first time in months, he had a real bed, a hot shower, and 4 walls that belonged to him. He sat on the edge of the mattress, running his hands over the jacket's smooth surface, trying to process what had just happened. The hot meal arrived within an hour. Real food, not the scraps he'd been surviving on. As he ate, the veteran felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Not the desperate kind that comes from desperation, but the steady kind that builds from being seen as human again. Someone had looked at him and decided he was worth helping. According to the veteran's later accounts, he found work within a week. The confidence from that night in the parking lot had straightened his shoulders, cleared his voice, made him remember who he'd been before the war broke him down. The jacket became his most treasured possession, a reminder of his own worth. Those who worked with Elvis said he paid more attention to veterans after that night. His security team noticed he'd ask his driver to slow down when they passed homeless folks, studying their faces, sometimes stopping to help. Some accounts suggest Elvis helped veterans quietly at times throughout his career, never making it part of his public image, never using it for publicity. The veteran later told people that Elvis saved his life that night, not just with the money or the hotel room, but with something more valuable: recognition, respect, the simple act of being treated like a person instead of a problem to step around. He'd served his country and came home to nothing, but one man had seen him, really seen him. Years later, when people asked the veteran about meeting Elvis, he always talked about the jacket first. How warm it felt when Elvis placed it around his shoulders. How wearing it reminded him that somebody had cared enough to give away something precious without expecting anything in return. The story spread quietly among venue staff and fans, becoming one of those accounts that captures Elvis's private kindness as reported by those who were there. Each person who heard it carried something away, a reminder that kindness doesn't require speeches or ceremonies. Sometimes it just requires stopping when everyone else walks by. The veteran said that jacket reminded him for years that one act of recognition and respect could change everything. Their encounter became proof that the smallest gestures can carry the most weight, that seeing someone as human can matter more than any amount of money or fame. What this story reveals about true character goes far deeper than what happens on any stage. For many who were there, this moment felt like one of Elvis's greatest performances off stage. That night, outside a Las Vegas venue, the king of rock and roll showed us something more powerful than any song he ever recorded. He proved that fame means nothing if you can't see the people right in front of you who need help. This was a reminder that small acts matter. Elvis paused his ordinary world to help someone in need, showing us that recognizing another person's humanity can change everything. Look around you today. There's someone invisible, someone forgotten, someone who just needs to be seen. If you have any memories or family stories of Elvis, please share them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing for more personal stories like this one.